Lots of important Tesla news just happened, and I was right here. This was previously at just 20%. Will Tesla's Robotaxi be offered in California this year? And now it's at 82%. I said before that I believe Tesla will definitely launch in California something this year when it comes to a Robotaxi service. And I personally believe that Tesla stock is going to $1,000 per share, and that Tesla, says Elon Musk, if it continues to execute well with autonomy and human robots, it will then be the most valuable company in the world. And now I am even more convinced that Tesla stock is going to $1,000 per share because of this remark. Our efforts to refine the Robotaxi offering in Austin are not location specific and will allow us to scale to other cities quickly with marginal investment. When you look at Waymo or all of these other companies, whatever they do, it's usually often location specific and it just doesn't scale. But if we believe Tesla here, this is not at all the case with what Tesla is doing. And even if somehow it is the same thing that it is doing as what Waymo is doing, Tesla is doing the same thing then at a much cheaper cost. So it's not the same thing, and even if it was, because it's so much cheaper, it's not anyway. It's not the same thing. And then Elon Musk said, my guess is Robotaxis, basically, or FSD, is going to have a material impact on our financials around the end of next year. Tesla also says it wants to get FSD unsupervised finished on hardware 4 before figuring out what to do with hardware 3 vehicles. The focus is first to get unsupervised out. So I'm right again. This is exactly what I predicted. I said Tesla would focus on the current hardware, and all of us who have hardware 3 vehicles, well, these probably are not going to get better for now. And I believe Tesla should do exactly that, and this makes perfect business sense. Also, Tesla just confirmed that they are basically doing FSD supervised testing in London. So my friends in the UK, you guys should expect to see FSD sometime soon, maybe. When it comes to actual earnings, the analyst consensus was 39 cents, the actual was 40 cents, and Troy's estimate was 42 cents. However, one reason why Tesla stock is down in the after hours, giving us a bigger buying opportunity, is because some people are starting to realize that about 7 cents from earnings came from crypto gains, which of course are largely one-time gains. And without that crypto gain, Tesla would have missed Wall Street EPS estimates by about 6 cents per share. However, excluding regulatory credits, Tesla's auto margin was gross margin 15% versus 13.5% estimated, which is very good. And so Tesla had about $1.2 billion in GAAP income, free cash flow of about $100 million. And then another thing that I was right about was that Tesla already built some units of the affordable model. It is scheduled for the second half of this year for volume production. And the reason why they are not producing it more now is because the EV credits are going to end, and they are only going to produce it after the credits end, which I think makes sense, although in the short term that might hurt the stock, but it will actually improve sales and the overall earnings in the short term, at least, certainly. And this is one area where you will see the mainstream media say that Tesla is actually losing revenue, but then you will see some other people saying that actually this quarter, no, Tesla made more money than before. Well, the truth is they're talking about different time periods. So the mainstream media is probably going to talk about the year-over-year number, and most people, or many people in the Tesla community, are talking about the quarter-over-quarter numbers, which are up, but year-over-year we are down when it comes to revenue. Currently, Tesla is sitting on $36.8 billion in cash, which is down $200 million sequentially. So basically it's the same as before, but it has gone down a bit. And so you can see the financial strain on the Tesla financials right now in this quarterly earnings deck, but the balance sheet remains strong for now. And Elon did say that there might be a few bumpy quarters. He didn't say there will definitely be some, but he just said there might be some. And the moment he said that, I was looking at the stock in the after hours, and it started to slowly dip faster suddenly. So the future, of course, looks bright, but the next few quarters will still depend on selling more cars. But that's only when we are talking about Tesla's earnings. But currently, the market certainly is looking ahead significantly because Tesla is trading at 183. If you look at the PE ratio, clearly the market is pricing in what is coming and what Tesla is doing with Robotaxis and FSD. I definitely don't think it's fully priced in. I think only about this much is priced in, so not that much, but some of it is definitely priced in. Then Elon announced that AI5, hardware 5, will be in volume production in late 2026. I think in the worst case scenario, FSD unsupervised is going to be solved fully in all of USA geography without any safety drivers or anything like that. Definitely on hardware 5 if there are some struggles with AI 4. Because on this call, Elon did say that right now, basically the main hurdle is the hardware in the vehicles. Just to be clear, I'm definitely not saying that Tesla is not going to have unsupervised FSD without any safety passengers in the vehicle until Tesla actually deploys hardware 5. I'm definitely not saying that. What I'm saying is in the worst case scenario, that's what we might see where Tesla feels really comfortable scaling unsupervised FSD without anyone in the car. Also, I listened to Rob Maurer from Tesla Daily, and he said that in the last 5,000 miles that he drove on FSD, he basically had maybe perhaps one, possibly a safety intervention. So he thinks that the FSD tracker is complete BS. Now, driving from my personal experience on hardware 4, I would say the update that I had before this last one, definitely I agree with Rob Maurer. The current update that I have, I definitely disagree with him. And really the only complaint that I have is the following distance. If I go on a highway, the following distance is way too short, and when the vehicle starts braking, my FSD only brakes a little bit. So then the distance, let's say, imagine that the distance between me and the car, relatively speaking, not in absolute terms, is about this far. The moment FSD starts like actually braking, the distance is about this much. That's way too close for my comfort. I mean, it starts braking from like right here, but it doesn't brake much, even though you see that the car in front of you actually braked really hard. I think this sort of thing is really easy to fix because the previous version for me personally worked perfectly. I don't know if it's just the area where I drive, or maybe Rob somehow is having an actual different experience. I don't know. But what I am certain of is that's definitely an easy thing to fix, and probably Tesla fixed it in its Robotaxis already. Because everything else apart from that is basically okay. And then Elon drops this. It will be a profound game changer. He's talking about Tesla's AI 5. It's so powerful, we'll have to nurse to some degree for markets outside of the US because it blows way past the export restrictions. Whoa, volume production won't start until late 2026, maybe slipping to early 2027. Yeah, so once, I think probably unsupervised FSD for all of us, regular people in our cars, I think AI 5 is probably more likely, but for Robotaxi, I think Tesla has more control over that. So I think AI 4 obviously I think is going to scale, but AI 5 for us, everyday irresponsible individuals, I'm looking at some of you, you know who you are. I know some of you, I've seen it. Some people are just not very responsible and they have timeouts when they try FSD because they think it's safer than human driving when it's not, and they hear warnings and alarms and they still just don't pay attention to the road. That actually happens. So I think Tesla is going to be much more comfortable scaling unsupervised FSD in regular vehicles for us regular consumers with hardware 5. And maybe eventually it'll come to hardware 4, but it will probably be a little bit later after Tesla improves the model even more. And I'm sure they are definitely already plotting AI6. Elon did spend quite a bit of time on the earnings call talking about the restrictions of local hardware. And he was talking about intelligence density and how that's the big thing and how Tesla is by far the best in the world at that. Then Tesla says we continue to prepare for broader release of FSD supervised in China this year pending regulatory approval. Then Tesla announced we had record test drives in North America, up 20% sequentially. What they're giving us here, I'm not quite happy how they wrote it because you can interpret this in so many different ways. We had a record, yes, but they don't tell us by how much the record was crushed. They're just saying it's up 20% sequentially. So it could be that the record was just 1% higher than the previous record. So that's basically, okay, we just had the same as the previous best, basically. And if anything, that's almost something that I don't like because we had a record number of test drives, but we didn't have a record number of deliveries. So actually this, I'm not sure if I would have included this. It sounds positive at first, but then you think about it a bit more and I'm not so sure. As a bull, however, I do take this as a positive, but if I was a bear, this would be a clear negative. I do like that Tesla mentioned that eventually they are going to remove the safety riders and that they are going to expand the geofenced area by a lot. But the big bomb was that they are going to refine the Robotaxi offering in Austin and that the services in Austin are not location specific. And then Tesla announces that both Semi and Cybercab vehicles are slated for volume production in 2026. Now here's one interesting chart. Overall, I like this chart certainly. And one thing here just doesn't make that much sense. And to me, that is from V11, you see how not that many miles were added, and then after V12 quickly this did increase noticeably, and then it leveled off, and there was another increase and jump. And I would have expected that with V13, so somewhere around here, that we would have had more people driving on V13 because it's so much better than V12. And you do see initially people try and then they probably decide, I'm not going to use it as much because it's just not that good. But here it's basically consistent. So we no longer see drops. It's consistent. But it's interesting that we are not seeing like a clear increase. To me personally, what this signals is that Tesla needs to think of a better way to let people know that V13 is actually much better than V12, because this doesn't make sense. Everyone that I know around me that actually started using V13, now they actually use FSD, whereas before they tried and they just wouldn't use it. So to me, this chart doesn't quite fully make sense, other than Tesla needs to do a better job telling people how good V13 is, because this should be going up exponentially. Instead, so far it's largely linear. Not exactly. I think it is picking up a little bit here, but it's largely linear. However, Elon did say that Tesla is going to release a new FSD model with 10 times the parameters. And if you remember the last time that happened, basically we got FSD V13 and it was a step change from V12. So I think there's going to be another FSD software version that's going to be better by that much again. And that I'm sure is definitely going to bring a lot more people to using FSD. But it's a huge number. On average, every single day, 11 million miles are driven per day on FSD. And then perhaps one of the craziest announcements was Elon said that autonomous ride-hailing in half of the US by end of 2025 is going to happen. Half of the US specifically by population. And CERN basically guessed which states Tesla would go to. But currently, specifically, we know that Tesla is working on going to Florida, Arizona, California, Nevada, and a few more. To me personally, the territorial expansion, okay, that's sure great and all that is fantastic. I do want to see no safety rider. And I want to see, in my personal car, I want to see actual improvements right now. I know Rob Maurer from Tesla Daily, he's having a total blast. Perhaps one possible safety intervention in 5,000 miles. That's not at all my experience so far on this latest update, but I'm sure that can be adjusted and changed. And with the 10x increase of the parameter count on existing hardware, I think we would have incredibly good, stellar performance, definitely safer than human driving. And here we can see Tesla's AI training hardware, how it's growing. Currently, we are at well over 100,000 H100 equivalent GPUs. The big growth seems to be over. Tesla just needs to now basically implement everything it has and use everything it has. Elon also said, we have done what we said we were going to do. That doesn't mean we are always on time. When it comes to FSD, that's a gentle thing to say. Definitely not on time so far, but we get it done. And our naysayers are sitting there with egg on their face. Now, I don't think that the naysayers feel that they do have an egg on their face. They will have it when Tesla is going to be in multiple cities in the US without any safety riders in Robotaxi vehicles. By then, they will definitely have not just one egg on their face, they'll have 100 on top of all of the dirt and mud that they would be thrown on their faces. So I think Elon is saying this because he just sees the current FSD software version, which I can't test, but they see 3 to 6 months ahead, and what he's seeing, he's probably liking it. But however, that argument that Tesla sees 3 to 6 months ahead, this argument has been used for like the last 3 years, and every single time it was used, basically not that much comes out of it. As in, FSD wasn't safer than human driving by the end of 2022 or 2023 or 2024. So I know using that same argument that FSD unsupervised would be safer than human driving without a safety rider in the Tesla Robotaxi vehicle, it probably doesn't sound that smart to use that argument, but one time it is actually going to definitely turn out to be true. And the cost of being wrong in this case is actually, if you are a long-term investor, the cost of being wrong there earlier is basically zero, because the moment Tesla actually figures this whole thing out and then scales it, and then everyone realizes, oh, Tesla beat everyone and is now going to completely dominate the market. The moment that happens, we will have what happened between 2019 and 2020 and 2021. Tesla stock basically exploded 10 times. But for years, 5-6 years before then, Tesla was basically flat. If anything, you could have bought Tesla stock somewhere around 2014-ish or so. And then in 2019, there were moments where you would have lost basically in 5-ish, 6-ish years, about 30% of your money, maybe even about 35% of your money. Only those people lost that sold back in 2019. Those that kept, they made it big. And I really like this year. We will get the approvals for FSD supervised in Europe this year, at least partially this quarter. I like that. Elon also said that Tesla vehicle sales are largely driven by FSD, and he believes that EU FSD approval will turn around EU sales. But why? North America sales have declined despite FSD working better here, says James. I think at least the initial approval will help sales because there definitely are some people that want to use FSD, but they cannot, and they would buy a Tesla vehicle, but because there's no FSD, they might go with another option. Whereas Americans had this option to buy FSD now for years, not just buy FSD, but actually buy it and then use it immediately. So therefore, you're not seeing the change here in the US as much because FSD, even from V12 to V13, the improvement, while it is a very big, significant improvement, it's not like V12 was not usable. It was actually really useful. Now, V11, how useful was that? Well, that's a different conversation compared to V12 and V13. Now, FSD subscription take rate is up 25% since the price dropped to $99. And Omar says, honestly, it should be growing much faster than that based on what I'm experiencing in my car. I definitely agree with him. So let's say, just to make math easy, before let's say it was 10%, now basically it would be 12.5% if I'm interpreting these numbers correctly. That's a pretty small jump. If FSD didn't just get 25% better, it's much better than that. And in terms of usefulness and usability, it's definitely more than just 25% useful compared to the previous version because now it's just safer. It's just so much easier. For example, I know quite a few people that tried V12 and they said, it's not ready, not good enough for me. And they just didn't use it at all. So usability for these people is basically zero because they just wouldn't use it even if they had purchased it. And I know people that purchased FSD, paid the full price, V12, never used it. But V13, I don't know a single person who has V13 and says, I don't use it because it's not good enough. I don't know a single person anymore. And then Elon Musk says 50% of Tesla owners that could try FSD have not even tried it once. This is honestly so frustrating, says Sawyer. Tesla's FSD is freaking incredible, yet so many people have no clue. Tesla needs to do more to address this. Now, I wonder, how could we solve this problem? I think if it's a Tesla owner, give them FSD trials and have prompts and stuff like that, emails, maybe even calls. And certainly also Elon said when people go to a service center, it's mentioned to them and stuff like that. I think all of that is good. But then just overall, if vehicle owners don't even know how good FSD is, how about the general public? What do you think they think? I'm pretty sure the absolute majority of the people have no clue how good FSD is. And the vehicle sales having not increased, I said this earlier, but cut the price of the vehicles to a point where you no longer want to cut them. And then once we reach that point, advertise. But don't just like put up a random simple ad that any 10-year-old can make, like, oh, buy our vehicle because it's good. No, like make something that Steve Jobs made, like that iconic ad, like actually put some effort in it. I mean, Tesla made some really good videos before. For example, the April 1st prank video where they had the avoid parking ticket mode where the Tesla vehicles supposedly just drive around to avoid tickets. So you don't park it, you sort of park it, but the way you park is just by driving around in circles. That was great. So make something that feels similar to that, as in the wow factor is there, and then run that as an ad. Tesla definitely has a talent and resources and everything to do, and they can probably get a huge successful campaign for 10 million. And then if it doesn't work, fine. I have no issues with that, but so far we haven't tried. And I was listening to Rob Maurer earlier today about the earnings call, and he thinks Tesla should advertise too. But just to be very clear, in the long term, it actually basically doesn't matter if Tesla advertises right now or not, as long as Tesla solves FSD. As long as Tesla does that and scales its Robotaxi network and all of that is done, and Tesla's FSD is unsupervised in all of the US and basically all of Europe and perhaps in China too, whether Tesla advertises right now or not doesn't really matter. If Tesla somehow doubled its profitability overall, its total profit or total revenue because it started advertising, but then later it solves unsupervised FSD and scales it, doesn't matter that they advertised earlier. Although it would definitely help a stock, I personally think it's a good business strategy. I did well with advertising before. It works. I spent 150,000 before and turned that into over 2 million. Unless the new FSD version is basically across the corner and Tesla's about to release it, then you could wait for that version to be released to the main public, because if it's even much better than V13, then yeah, I think it does make sense to wait. Basically what I'm saying is the better your product is, the easier it is to advertise it. Now people are complaining about driver monitoring. I don't have a single complaint, but Elon Musk says we will loosen up how focused the driver needs to be on the road. Also about an approval in Europe, specifically Tesla is probably going to get an approval soon in the Netherlands, and then perhaps all of the EU. And then confidently, next year, people will be able to add or subtract their Tesla from their Tesla Robotaxi network, said Elon Musk. I'm not so sure that's definitely going to happen next year. I think it makes more sense for Tesla first to just deploy their Robotaxis. But if Tesla lets people do this next year already, I would be pretty impressed. Oh, James added his 2 cents. Elon realized that no one, even existing Tesla owners, know about FSD, has no idea how to solve it. That's his cheeky remark, as in Elon advertised. And then Elon says Tesla's Robotaxi Geofence in Austin will get even bigger and longer in a couple of weeks or so. The Austin Robotaxi service area will be expanded dramatically beyond what competitors are able to offer. Elon said, I think we'll start delivering cars autonomously from the factory in Fremont by the end of this year. Then Optimus version 3 prototype by end of this year, while in production in 2026. And in 5 years, Elon believes that Tesla will be producing. He said, I would be shocked if Tesla doesn't get to 100,000 units a month, basically 5 years from now. We are really getting Optimus to the point where it is a phenomenal design, says Elon. And then about control of Tesla and him only having 13% of voting control, he said this: that is a major concern for me, and I hope that's addressed at the upcoming shareholder meeting. So it sounds like a new compensation package is going to be proposed, or certainly there should be a proposal to acquire some XAI by Tesla. The next shareholder meeting is in November. I don't want to have so little control that I can easily be ousted by activist shareholders after having built an army of robots. My control of Tesla should be enough to ensure that it goes in a good direction, but not so much that I can't be thrown out if I go crazy. He basically said that before earlier, and I think this is very reasonable. And I personally think if Elon would have had another compensation package, and if he was happy with voting control and all of that, and his compensation, I'm not so sure he would have started XAI. I think he might have, he would have more likely started something within Tesla. But even if that's true, I don't think he will ever admit it. He shouldn't admit it, and that might cause him some issues. But despite all of this, I am firmly convinced that Tesla stock is going to $1,000 per share. And this doesn't change anything about Tesla solving FSD, making it safer than human driving in all of the USA. And then $300 million in tariff costs in Q2, 2/3 in auto and 1/3 in energy. James says that's nothing, honestly, testament to localization of the supply chain that Tesla has. It is actually quite impressive. And I'm looking forward to the more affordable models in Q4 of this year. And I'm pretty sure that we have seen some of them already. Probably this one is one of them. And this is the other one. And Elon said basically that it's going to look like a Model Y. Now, my interpretation of that is going to basically look like a Model Y, except it's going to be smaller. That's my personal interpretation. It could turn out that it's just basically a Model Y, but stripped down. But having seen this picture here, I think, in my opinion, this is smaller than this one. And then a big shout out goes to James, who so far continues being the single most accurate Tesla stock earnings analyst. He's number 1. Matt Smith is number 2. The street consensus is number 3. So Troy currently is actually worse than the street consensus, and Gary Black is also worse than the street consensus. Then services and other gross profit grew 64% sequentially, partly due to improved supercharging gross profit generation from increased volume. We added over 2,900 net new supercharging stalls, growing the network 18% year over year. Remember when Elon let go of the whole supercharging team? Well, The supercharger network is still growing. Oh, and this is good news. Our lithium refining and cathode production plants remain on track to begin production in 2025, onshoring production of critical battery materials to the US. And of course, James and I are excited about that. And people are just misunderstanding, not understanding fully how big the Tesla energy business is going to be. Batteries are just going to be a massive thing. Not that many people appreciate just how gigantic the scale of battery demand is, says Elon Musk. The US grid puts out around 1 terawatt, but average usage is just under half a terawatt. You could more than double the energy output of the US every year just with batteries, meaning megapacks. And this is certainly true. Q2 2025 was a seminal point in Tesla's history, the beginning of our transition from leading the electric vehicle and renewable energy industries to also becoming a leader in AI, robotics, and related services. And Tesla Energy gross profit reached a record of 846 million in Q2 of this year. So we are getting close to 1 billion now. And what's the margin? It's about 30%. Look at that growth. Oh, it's good. And keep in mind that the factory in China is now coming online. So this is going to keep growing. Now, maybe the next quarter it's not going to scale that much, but it's inevitable before this jumps up again. Right now, mostly this is just coming from Lathrop. I love these 30% margins. This is incredible. Elon also complains when he does an AI day, competitors just copy everything and then Tesla loses because of that. But Tesla also recruits some people. So he has to figure out whether it's worth doing another AI day or something like that, but sounds like they may not do another one. And Tesla says the energy business is more critical than ever. And yeah, that revenue, that money is going to grow. And right now, not that many people are paying attention, but it's becoming more apparent it's going to be a big business. And I have been talking about the Tesla energy business very strongly since the end of 2022, December. If you remember when Tesla stock went down all the way to almost $100, one thing that actually pushed it way back was the energy business. People started to realize, oh, this actually Tesla could have something there. But then people stopped talking about it. And I think that's a mistake. Tesla says the expanded AI training compete with an additional 16,000 H200 GPUs at Gigafactory, Texas, bringing Cortex to a total of 67,000 H100 equivalents. Then DOGE 2 operating at scale sometime next year, somewhere around the compute power of 100,000 H100s, bigger than all the compute Tesla has online today. This is a big deal. And Tesla is on course to begin domestic US production of their first LFP cells for their energy storage products later this year. Also, this is interesting. There's no more vehicle sale guidance at all. Nothing. Vehicle capacity is currently, according to Tesla, over 2.35 million per year. James is projecting that deliveries this year will be 1.5 million. And Tesla lists its market share of Tesla vehicles by region. You can see US and Canada here in blue, Europe in red, and then China in green. So China is relatively stable. Other regions right now are dropping a little bit in terms of market share. And this is not EV market share. This is market share of all vehicles, basically, which I think that's a number that matters more than the EV market share. And then Sawyer says, I think it's safe to assume Tesla's entire lineup likely won't be fully transitioned to hardware 5 until early 2027, maybe later. And based on how things went with hardware 4, which took over a year before Tesla released software updates that fully tapped into its improved performance, we might not see hardware 5's capabilities really put to full use until late 2027 or early 2028. It might be sooner if hardware 5 is in the Cybercab. I'm pretty sure Cybercab will have hardware 5. All this to say, if you've been wondering whether to hold off for a hardware 5 Tesla, just get a hardware 4 Tesla, and then Tesla will probably offer upgrades down the line if needed. Otherwise, you might be waiting 18 to 24 months. That's a good point. And Elon also assured that a lot of improvements are still possible on hardware 4, specifically a 10x parameter count improvement. Wow, so we're asking, should Tesla include 1 free year of FSD with every new vehicle purchase? Personally, I think it's a bit much. Maybe like 3 months? Okay, but 1 year? I don't know. That's a bit much. Oh, and Elon just posted, Tesla team is focused on making sure all Tesla owners try out FSD. So that's good. Personally, for me, this was a pretty decent earnings call. Elon was honest, as in he said there might be a few rough quarters here and there. And I think that's a pretty accurate assessment. And when the markets hear that, usually the markets don't like it and the stock presents with a bigger buying opportunity. But for me, I was expecting that already. So this is no news. And I think to many investors, this is no new news. But to many traders, that is perhaps news because they do listen carefully to what the CEO says. And in this case, it didn't help for short-term investors. But for us long-term Tesla stock investors, nothing changes. I'm keeping all my position. I believe Tesla stock is going to $1,000 per share, and then after that, well above it. And I will buy more Tesla stock, actually. After this call, personally, as a long-term investor, not as a short-term investor. As a short-term investor, probably I would walk away somewhat negatively from this call. But as a long-term Tesla stock investor, the thing that I really liked was that they specifically specified that what they are doing with Robotaxis in Austin, it's not location specific, that they can scale whatever they are doing and that eventually the safety rider is going to be removed. And I really liked hearing about the parameter count, 10 times the parameter count, because when Tesla did this the last time, we saw such a huge improvement in performance. So that's coming again. So overall, I am very happy with this earnings report and earnings call. I will continue holding all my Tesla stock, and I am convinced and I believe that Tesla stock will go to $1,000 per share. My name is Matt Postius. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.